Hey guys, tonight we're floating gently down a Cambodian river, just before the sun decides it's time to rise. There's a fine mist on the water, the kind that clings to your eyelashes and softens the sound of paddles dipping. Wooden boats rock lazily against the docks, and in the distance someone is already clanging a pot far too enthusiastically for this early hour. You, however, are not in a rush. You're tucked into a corner of a reed hut, half awake, half wrapped in a woven blanket, listening to the creak of bamboo under your weight. It's warm, humid, and somewhere nearby, someone is pickling fish. And that's not as awful as it sounds. You're going to find that out the sleepy way. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin your day in a floating village on the edge of Tonlé Sap Lake, where homes sit on stilts and dreams drift just above the waterline. The boats around you aren't hurrying, they're meandering. Most of them are simple, dug from dark wood, with little roofs of woven palm to keep out the sun and let in the stories. The air smells faintly of river mud, old netting, and something fishy that, surprisingly, makes your stomach rumble. This is breakfast territory, and around here, breakfast often starts with Prahok, a fermented fish paste that sounds intense but is essentially Cambodia's peanut butter. That is, if peanut butter had a slightly pungent personality and came with ancestral pride. You wander toward a wooden platform, where a boy no older than 10 is helping his grandmother lift a stone lid from a giant clay jar. A waft of earthy, salty, tangy air escapes and smacks you gently in the nose. She laughs. You do your best not to sneeze. "Smells like a good batch," she says, not looking up. Her hands are stained from years of this, palms dark with sun and labor. Inside the jar, tiny silver fish, Tray Riel, the national fish, no bigger than your finger, have melted into a thick, gray paste, packed between layers of salt and rice bran. They've been fermenting for months, and today, she's ready to stir. Historians still argue whether Prahok originated as a royal preserve or a humble peasant staple. What's certain is that it predates the Khmer Empire and has been delighting or challenging palates for over a millennium. Used in stews, stir-fries, or just smeared on warm rice, it's both a seasoning and a symbol. You watch as the boy gently scoops the paste into small banana leaf packages, tying them off with twine. These will go to market later, balanced in twin baskets slung across a bamboo pole. For now, though, one gets opened and placed on a steaming plate of rice for you to try. You take a cautious bite. It's oddly good, salty, rich, full of umami, like anchovy paste, if anchovy paste had decided to go on a backpacking trip through Southeast Asia, learn 3 new spices, and come home enlightened. The grandmother chuckles at your expression and hands you a wedge of palm sugar to nibble alongside. Sweet and salty, the eternal Cambodian romance. Your boat guide arrives with a thermos of weak, jasmine-scented tea and an invitation to take a morning ride. The boat is small, the cushions thin, but the breeze is gentle and the world is waking up. You pass other floating homes where children are brushing their teeth with river water and grandfathers are squinting into the sunlight like they've seen this exact morning 10,000 times. As you glide past one house, you spot long fish traps hanging like wind chimes from the rafters. Cylindrical, made of woven bamboo, they're designed to let fish in and absolutely not let them out. In a nearby inlet, someone is emptying one. Dozens of tiny silver fish wriggle into a basket, soon destined for another jar of Prahok. The cycle continues. Your guide hums a lullaby under his breath. You don't recognize the words, but the tone is soft and cyclical, like waves, like breath, like something a mother would sing while packing rice for the day. He mentions, almost as an afterthought, that fish fermented under a full moon always taste better. You don't question this. It feels true. He points toward the lake, where the water is wider and the sky is starting to catch fire with dawn. Tonlé Sap is no ordinary body of water. It swells and shrinks with the seasons, pulsing with the Mekong River, expanding fivefold during monsoon months. In ancient times, it was the heartbeat of the Khmer Empire, feeding millions with its seasonal bounty. You float on what was once in the distance. Birds skim the surface in sleepy zigzags. You feel your eyelids dip slightly with the rhythm of the boat. The fermented fish is settling into your belly like an old memory, and the palm sugar is still coating your tongue, melting into a kind of peace. You imagine this same scene 1,000 years ago. A different boat, a different guide, the same sun, the same lake, maybe even the same recipe passed quietly from hand to hand, lip to lip. The empire has risen, crumbled, and scattered, but breakfast remains. And just as you're about to drift too far into the haze, your guide nudges you softly and asks if you'd like to see where they tap the sugar palms next. You nod, silently, sleepily, and let the boat turn its nose as the palm trees start to lean in your direction, tall silhouettes draped in morning mist. The boat glides into a narrow inlet where the water becomes more green than blue, shaded by thick clusters of sugar palms. You can smell them before you land, a scent like warm hay and honey, edged with something pleasantly bitter, like roasted bark. It's the smell of syrup before it's syrup. The boat bumps gently against a muddy embankment, and your guide hops out barefoot, offering a hand. The mud is soft and warm, like stepping into a sleepy pudding. You follow a path worn by generations, passing chickens who seem deeply uninterested in your existence. Somewhere, a dog yawns audibly. Just ahead, a wiry man is scaling a sugar palm like it's no big deal. He's barefoot, shirtless, and moving faster than your brain can quite process. A single rope is looped around his waist and the tree trunk, and with small, practiced hops, he's rising, higher and higher, until he disappears into the fronds. You squint again and realize he's not climbing one tree. He's climbing half a dozen before breakfast. He's tapping the sap, the sweet, milky lifeblood of the sugar palm. Each tree has flower stalks that ooze this sap when cut, and it has to be collected before the sun turns it sour. The man, barely sweating, is emptying small, hanging bamboo tubes into a larger container strapped to his back. It's like watching a caffeinated squirrel do a chemistry experiment. Historians still argue whether the Khmer perfected palm sugar techniques independently or adapted them from early Indian or Javanese methods. What's clear is that these trees have been a sugary backbone of the region for over 1,000 years, used not just in desserts but in curries, marinades, and even certain medicines. You step closer to the base of one of the trees, where a woman, possibly his sister or wife, sits boiling down yesterday's harvest. A large metal pan is balanced over a slow fire made of coconut husks. The liquid inside is bubbling softly, giving off thick, sweet steam that clings to your skin like syrup itself. She stirs with a long wooden paddle, unhurried. The fire crackles. A baby nearby plays with a wooden spoon, smacking it rhythmically against a palm leaf mat like a miniature percussionist. The scene feels staged for a folk tale, but this is simply life. Slow, sticky, and cyclical. She offers you a taste, just a dab on a wooden spoon. You lick it. It's warm, slightly smoky, and so sweet it makes your jaw tingle. Nothing like processed sugar. This is complex with layers you can't quite name. Molasses, caramel, burnt toast if it had a personality disorder. You look over and notice several small cones drying in the shade, solidified sugar molded in banana leaves. These will go to market later, traded for rice, fish, or perhaps a pair of plastic sandals that will dissolve in the next heavy rain. But for now, they sit like golden snails under a woven canopy. A goat bleats from somewhere too close for comfort, and a child giggles. Your guide tells you the toddy, the palm sap, can also be fermented into a rather strong liquor if you leave it out too long. Some families do. Others swear they never would. It depends, he says with a grin, on how long the monk stays asleep. You wander a little, brushing your fingers against the spiky trunks. Each tree tells a story, marked by rings where it's been tapped, much like old telephone poles. Some have names carved into them. Others have small charms tied around their base, offerings to the tree spirits, or perhaps just reminders not to trip over their roots. The man has climbed down now, balancing his haul of fresh sap with the easy grace of someone who's done it every day of his life. He joins his wife at the fire, says almost nothing, and begins cutting firewood with a short blade that looks older than he is. The routine is silent, efficient, and oddly calming. Even the baby has stopped banging the spoon, perhaps hypnotized by the bubbling pot. A rooster crows, late to the party. The sun is climbing now, and with it, the humidity. You feel it settling into your bones. Not oppressive, just blanketing. You understand now why everything here moves slowly, even time, especially time. You're invited to help pour some of the boiled down syrup into the banana leaf molds. It's thicker now, a golden brown sludge that clings to the ladle like lazy lava. You miss the first one entirely and splash some onto the mat. Nobody minds. The baby claps. You bow apologetically, and the woman just smiles, gently guiding your hands. The syrup begins to cool and harden within minutes. The transformation feels alchemical, from tree to sap to fire to sweetness. It's like watching goldsmiths who happen to use spoons instead of smelters. You ask if they ever tire of sugar. Your guide translates, and the woman snorts softly. Only when there's none left. Sentence you've heard all day. You sit for a while, sipping more jasmine tea and swatting at a sleepy mosquito that seems to think your knee is a viable breakfast buffet. The smell of the sugar, the hiss of the fire, the quiet chatter, it all blends into a kind of soft, edible meditation. Eventually, your guide stands, brushing sugar crumbs from his pants. Want to see the boiling hut next? He asks. You nod, already imagining the next step along a footpath that winds like a lazy river through the grove. The earth beneath your feet dusted with the fine powder of crushed palm bark. The sun is climbing higher now, but the trees stretch wide above you, casting dappled shadows that flicker as the breeze stirs the fronds. Birds whistle something that sounds suspiciously like gossip. Ahead, a dark little hut leans against a slope, its roof patched with old tin and palm leaves, a chimney of woven reed puffing out slow curls of wood smoke. This is the boiling hut, a place where things are reduced, thickened, and transformed, not just in pots, but in stories. Inside, it's dim and humid. The fire has already been lit. You step in, and the air changes completely. Heavier, warmer, smelling of syrup, charred wood, and something metallic that might be the pan. It wraps around you like a caramel blanket. You blink as your eyes adjust. There are 3 women here, each with the kind of patience that could shame a mountain. One stirs a wide iron pan the size of a small bathtub using a long wooden paddle. Another kneels nearby, skimming foam off the top with a flat spoon and flicking it expertly into a bowl. The third is folding banana leaves into tight cones, their green edges curling like cattails. You sit on a low stool, instantly sticky, and watch the syrup bubble in slow motion. It's hypnotic. The sap collected that morning has already gone through one boiling over an open flame outside. This second boil is where it becomes jaggery, a semi-solid sugar used for cooking, drinking, or just nibbling when no one's looking. The woman stirring the pot hums under her breath. It's not a song you recognize, but the melody drifts like smoke, looping in a circle that seems to match the paddle's motion. She's been doing this for hours, possibly days. Time behaves strangely in sugar huts. Your guide leans in and whispers, "They say if the syrup burns, your next harvest will be cursed." He shrugs, clearly not one to test the theory. Superstition clings to this craft like steam on the hut's walls. Historians still argue whether the practice of boiling sap into solid sugar evolved purely for trade purposes, or as a way to store sweetness through Cambodia's long, dry seasons. Either way, the technique has changed little over centuries. Fire, patience, and intuition. No thermometers, just the angle of the bubbles and the smell of the air. You reach for one of the finished sugar cones, still warm. The outside has hardened slightly, but the inside oozes like honey if you press your thumb in. You resist. Barely. It would be impolite. Probably. A young boy bursts into the hut, carrying a chicken under one arm, and a grin the size of the moon. He says something in Khmer that makes all three women laugh, something about someone's uncle and a runaway goat, judging by the hand gestures. The chicken seems unbothered by its role in this comedy. Outside, a kettle whistles on a separate fire. Your guide offers you a drink made from melted palm sugar, lime, and crushed basil seeds. You take a sip, and it's like drinking the rainforest's memory. Sweet, citrusy, and slightly gritty. The basil seeds float like tiny eyeballs, but don't let that distract you. They add texture, like polite poppy seeds. One of the women gestures for you to come closer. She shows you how the syrup changes as it thickens. At first, it moves like tea, then like oil. Now it folds in on itself like silk in slow motion. She tilts the paddle, and a sheet of sugar drapes itself back into the pan. It's beautiful. There's a quiet competition between boiling huts in this region. Each family has their own secret technique. Some stir clockwise, some don't stir at all. Some swear by boiling over coconut husks, others by mango wood. The results are often indistinguishable to outsiders, but for locals, each batch carries a signature, a sugar fingerprint. She lifts the pan slightly, just enough to reduce the heat, and pours a ladle of thickened syrup onto a slab of banana leaf. It cools almost instantly, forming a golden puck the size of your palm. She hands it to you with a grin. You take a cautious bite. It's still warm, and the flavor is even deeper than before. Almost smoky, with a whisper of bitterness at the end that keeps it from being cloying. You imagine monks centuries ago eating this very thing before prayer, or maybe children stealing pieces when no one was watching, chewing them behind water jars. The hut creaks as a gust of wind rushes through the door. A bamboo chime rattles softly. You can hear a frog calling from somewhere beneath the floorboards. One of the women asks if you want to try stirring. You accept. Of course you do. The paddle is heavier than it looks, and the syrup resists, like it knows you're a novice. You push, slowly, awkwardly, and they clap politely. One of them fans you with a piece of woven palm, chuckling. You're sweating. A lot. Stirring syrup is not for the faint of heart or arm. You give up the paddle with a grateful smile, and she resumes as though she never stopped. The rhythm returns instantly. You step outside to cool off. The sunlight feels almost aggressive after the shade of the hut, and you squint at the sky. A pair of birds dance in midair above the trees. You sip the last of your palm lime drink and watch the steam curl up from the chimney, disappearing into the blue. Your guide joins you and points to a small footbridge leading over a canal. That way, he says, leads to the rice paddies. You nod. Your stomach is full of sugar, and your head full of smoke and song. It's time to see where the sweetness goes under your feet like a hammock in a lazy breeze. Below, the canal gurgles with sleepy satisfaction, carrying flecks of leaves, a couple of adventurous frogs, and the occasional discarded sandal. You're still a bit sticky from the sugar hut, but the wind helps. Kind of. On the other side, the world opens up. Endless rice fields stretch before you, glittering under the rising sun like a slow-moving mirror. The young green shoots are only ankle-high now, but they sway with the kind of coordination that makes you think they're in on some ancient botanical secret. You squelch into the paddies alongside your guide, the muddy water swallowing your calves with a cold kiss. It's not unpleasant, just squishy. There's a rhythm here too, but it's slower, more patient. You can hear it in the way the farmers move, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, balancing sacks of seedlings like they're carrying small, leafy babies. And somewhere nearby, ducks. A whole army of them, in fact, fluffy, waddling, quacking, and completely uninterested in your presence. They meander between rows, sometimes stopping to splash, sometimes just plopping down in the shade of a scarecrow that looks suspiciously like it's wearing a retired karaoke outfit. The woman nearest to you calls out something in Khmer and waves. Her conical hat shields her face, but her smile cuts through it. She motions for you to try planting. Your guide translates. She says you'll sleep well if your hands touch the mud. You wade over, gingerly picking up a bundle of rice seedlings, bright green, slippery, and wriggly like baby seaweed. She shows you how to pinch a few, drive them gently into the mud, and space them evenly. You copy her. Your first few tries are fine, slightly tilted, maybe less graceful than hers. But nobody critiques. The rice doesn't judge. You keep planting, and slowly you find the rhythm. It's not unlike breathing. Reach, press, move, reach, press, move. It's oddly meditative, like a slow dance between mud and mindfulness. Historians still argue whether rice cultivation in Cambodia predates Indian influence or arrived via trade and adaptation. What's known is that the ancient Khmer Empire made rice its cornerstone, with vast irrigation systems stretching like veins across the land. In fact, from the air, remnants of those ancient canals still draw straight lines through the jungle, some of them now feeding fields exactly like this one. You take a break and plop down near the bank, where a young girl is arranging herbs in a basket: lemongrass, holy basil, long pepper, and something that might be wild ginger or might be something else entirely. She's preparing lunch for the workers, she explains through your guide. Rice, of course, with a little bit of fermented fish and a generous dash of palm sugar. Yes, even here, in the fields, Prahok makes another appearance. You get the sense that it's less of a food and more of a familial presence. A duck waddles up to inspect your sandal. You let it. It looks judgmental, but ultimately disinterested. The sun is getting higher, and the fields begin to shimmer like the world is slowly turning into soup. Time slows further. Conversations dip into murmurs. Someone begins to hum a folk tune, the same one, you think, that the sugar stirrer was humming earlier. It loops softly across the patties like a ribbon, tying the workers together. Lunch arrives in palm leaf bundles, compact, perfect packages tied with vines. You're handed one and sit under a tree with your guide to unwrap it. Inside is sticky rice, a boiled egg sliced with something resembling dental floss, a scoop of spicy Prahok kiddies, a creamy coconut-based dip laced with that signature fermented funk, and a wedge of roasted eggplant. The smell is earthy and strong, but the taste is smooth, balanced, and comforting in a way that feels deeply ancestral. You eat slowly, savoring every bite. The palm sugar in the dip takes the edge off the chili. The eggplant tastes like it came from someone's garden, which it probably did. A breeze passes, and a cloud of tiny white butterflies dances over the field. You close your eyes for a moment and just listen. You hear insects buzzing in lazy loops, ducks splashing, the occasional plop of a foot into mud, someone softly snoring on the far side of the patties. Maybe it's the man from earlier. Maybe it's the rice spirits taking a break. There's a kind of peace here that doesn't ask for attention. It just exists, quietly humming below the surface like bass notes in a lullaby. You're handed a small bundle of banana leaf with a sweet surprise inside: Num and some check, a sticky rice and banana cake, lightly sweetened with, you guessed it, palm sugar. You bite into it, and the texture is soft, chewy, and just a bit gooey. It tastes like the kind of dessert that some families bury these cakes under the house during the rainy season as offerings to the spirits of the earth. Or for snacking later, he adds with a wink. You both laugh softly, not wanting to disturb the air. It's hard to imagine kings and armies once rose and fell in these same valleys. That empire-sized irrigation systems fed into these fields, that thousands of hands once harvested rice not for market, but for monuments. Angkor Wat may have been built with stone, but it was fed by rice and sweetened by palm. The workers begin to gather their tools. A few ducks form a line, unprompted, and march toward the canal. It's time for them to splash home. The sun has begun its slow dip, and a golden glaze coats the fields. Your guide brushes the mud off his legs and offers a hand. "Next," he says, "let's meet the lady who sings to her fish jars." You follow your guide down a narrow path shaded by tamarind trees and wandering chickens, the sun now hanging low and buttery in the sky. The air is thick with the smell of cooked rice, crushed lemongrass, and the faint tang of fermentation, like someone accidentally left a party in a jar for just a little too long. Soon, you reach a modest, stilted house near the edge of the village, its wooden stairs leading up to a small balcony lined with clay pots. Not just a few, dozens, maybe 50. It's a pickled fish forest up here, and every jar is labeled in looping Khmer script, marked by tiny charms tied around the lids. Ribbons, coins, bits of folded banana leaf. These are more than condiments, they're family. A small woman emerges from the doorway, her gray hair twisted into a neat knot, her eyes sharper than any blade in the kitchen. This is Mae Srei, and she's been fermenting. Prahok, longer than most people have been alive. She wears a floral sarong and a shirt so faded it could be vintage or just immortal. You're not sure which. She greets you with a knowing smile and immediately offers you a slice of green mango dipped in something suspiciously fishy. You try it. It's salty, spicy, sweet, and sour all at once. You nod in approval. She cackles softly, as if you've passed the first of many tests. Your guide explains that Mae Srei is known around here for singing to her fermentation jars. Not always the same song, not even always in the same language, but always with a kind of gentle rhythm that seems to match the tempo of bubbling brine and time itself. Historians still argue whether the habit of singing to food fermentation jars is ancient spiritual practice, local superstition, or just something grandmothers do when no one else is listening. What's certain is that Mae Srei believes in it, and that's more than enough. She invites you up to the balcony, motioning for you to remove your sandals. You do, and the wood creaks under your feet, warm from the sun. The jars are lined up like obedient students, each one wrapped in a woven cloth to keep them cozy. She removes the lid of one and leans in with the solemnity of a jeweler inspecting a rare gem. "Still angry," she mutters. Then she starts humming, a low, melodic chant, just 5 or 6 notes repeated with variations, like a lullaby meant for soup. She taps the jar gently with a wooden spoon, once, twice, 3 times. Then she replaces the lid. "Tomorrow it will taste sweeter," she says, not looking at you. You believe her. Inside the house, the scent of garlic and chili hits you like a comforting slap. Her daughter is preparing a dish called cha krung, a stir-fry with fragrant paste made from galangal, turmeric, and fermented fish. The pan sizzles like a bedtime story being told too fast. You're invited to watch and eat, obviously. While you wait, Mae Srei shows you her pickling setup. Fish, salt, rice bran, sometimes crushed pineapple or papaya skin to speed things along. Each jar has a different recipe, adjusted slightly based on the season, the moon, or her mood. One jar is labeled simply November, another for Danny's wedding. A third reads, "Too spicy, don't cry." She opens that one for you. You do in fact cry a little. The daughter brings over bowls of hot rice, a fried egg, and the stir-fried cha krung. The smell alone could cause drowsiness. You take a bite. It's earthy and rich, with a hit of spice that doesn't shout, but murmurs sweetly down your throat. The Prahok lends it depth, a kind of funk that wraps around the flavors like a warm blanket. You ask if the fish ever go bad. Mae Srei squints at you. "They only go bad," she says, if you stop listening. You make a mental note never to ignore your condiments again. A dog ambles over and lies beside your mat. The light outside has gone golden, filtering through slatted walls. Someone in the distance is playing a bamboo flute. The sound winds through the trees like a lazy ribbon of thought. Mae Srei, during the flood season, a jar of Prahok floated away in the night. Everyone assumed it was lost. Months later, a fisherman downriver found it, intact, unharmed, and perfectly fermented. He brought it to market, sold it, and bought himself a bicycle. He never knew whose jar it was. But she did. She points at a smaller jar on the shelf. "That one's its sister," she says with pride. You laugh softly, unsure if she's serious. She does not laugh. You stop laughing. The daughter clears the dishes, and Mae Srei hands you a tiny jar, wrapped in banana leaf and twine. "For your dreams," she says. You thank her, bowing slightly, and she bows back. As you descend the stairs, your guide smiles. "She likes you," he says. "She didn't offer the mango to my cousin." You head back down the trail, fireflies beginning to blink in the underbrush. The scent of brine, banana leaf, and star anise clings to your clothes. Somewhere in the dark, you think you hear a jar being sung to. Crept above the palms by the time you reach the edge of the village, its reflection fluttering across the canal like a white silk scarf dipped in wind. You're not tired exactly, but there's a fullness in your chest, the kind that comes from too much food and just the right amount of wonder. Your guide points toward a flicker in the distance, an open-air pavilion draped in mosquito netting and candlelight. "We rest here tonight," he says, "but don't worry. It's not time for sleep. Not yet." Inside the pavilion, a low table awaits, flanked by woven mats and triangular pillows embroidered with lotus patterns. A kettle simmers beside a clay stove, and next to it, a tray of snacks, slices of candied tamarind, sesame rice crackers, and something that looks suspiciously like sugar-coated ants. You ask, they are sugar-coated ants. You try one naturally. It's crunchy, sweet, slightly lemony, and surprisingly polite. The host of this place, a retired school teacher with a voice like rustling parchment, greets you with a slow nod and motions for you to sit. She pours you a mug of tuk krok chmar, a tamarind tea, sweetened, of course, with palm sugar. You sip it slowly. It's sour and comforting, like a hug from someone who knows you'll be fine. "Tonight," she says, "we remember the pickled gods." You raise an eyebrow. So does your guide. She continues anyway. "Long ago," she explains, "when the first settlers followed the river upstream, they brought with them jars of preserved fish. Some say these jars were blessed by spirit priests. Others say the spirits were the fish. Either way, the people left offerings at their storage huts. Fresh herbs, rice, even a splash of toddy liquor, just in case the jars got hungry. Historians still argue whether these rituals represent true ancestor worship or a more symbolic reverence for abundance. What no one denies is that fermentation has always had a touch of the mystical. A little bit science, a little bit ghost story. Your host gestures to a shelf near the bamboo wall. There, 3 small jars sit on an altar, each draped in colored cloth. A stick of incense curls upward. Tiny bowls of sticky rice and dried shrimp sit beside them. You resist the urge to peek inside. They are, after all, gods. She tells you stories passed down from her grandmother about how a poorly sealed jar could bring a season of spoiled crops, how a perfectly aged one might cure a stubborn illness, how one particularly legendary jar sang at night and once refused to be moved, no matter how many men tried lifting it. Eventually, she says with a shrug, they just built the kitchen around it. A moth the size of a playing card flutters near the candle, casting wild shadows. The dogs outside bark once, then seem to think better of it. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the palm leaves with a sound like soft applause. Your guide asks a question in Khmer. The woman chuckles. Then, to your surprise, she lifts the corner of one of the altar cloths and pulls out a tiny jar, no larger than a teacup. She unscrews the lid and lets you sniff it. It smells divine. You don't know how else to describe it. There's a salty sharpness at first, followed by a warm, sweet rot that somehow feels clean, like memory, or earth after rain. It doesn't smell good in the way that perfume does, but it smells true. She gives you a knowing look. That one's from 1985. You blink. She nods again. Good year for catfish. You sip your tea slowly, letting that sink in. Outside, the frogs begin their nightly opera. One tenor in particular seems to have ambitions of stardom. The pavilion darkens as the candles burn lower, and your host begins humming softly, tracing her fingers over the rim of one of the jars. It's not a tune you recognize, but your body seems to lean into it anyway. Your eyelids dip, your shoulders fall. She says the fermentation jars are patient. They wait, they transform, they teach. And in return, they ask only for time. Time, salt, silence, and a little faith. You wonder aloud whether anything else in modern life works that way. She raises an eyebrow. Old friends, maybe. The kettle hisses as it boils dry, and she removes it from the fire. One of the dogs has curled beside your mat, snoring gently. The sugar ants are gone, which may or may not be symbolic. You lean back against your pillow, staring up at the thatched roof, where geckos cling like sleepy punctuation marks. You feel warm, full, and faintly preserved yourself. Your guide taps your shoulder. Tomorrow, he says, we visit the floating market. You nod, not moving. You wake to the sound of water. Let it all ferment a little longer. Not the delicate trickle of a garden fountain or the theatrical splash of a tourist boat, but the steady, purposeful lap of a river going about its business. You sit up, stretch, and notice your pillow is slightly damp from dew, or possibly a very ambitious gecko. Your guide is already waiting, his sandals kicked off, sipping tea on the edge of the wooden platform. He nods toward the river. We go by boat. Don't worry, it's slow. You step onto the little canoe just as the sky shifts from slate to rose. The oarsman, a wiry teenager with a baseball cap older than he is, smiles without speaking and begins to row. The boat glides forward, slipping through the reeds like a rumor. The floating market is not some loud, tourist-staged parade. It begins quietly, one boat then another, drifting in from canals like sleepy ducks coming home. Each is loaded with goods, mangoes, lotus roots, palm sugar cakes wrapped in dried banana leaf, and jars of something pickled and mysterious that seem to stare back at you. You pass an old woman ladling soup from a cauldron balanced precariously on her own tiny boat. She uses a stick to stabilize herself, barely glancing up as she portions breakfast for the vendors. The smell reaches you before you can ask what it is: lemongrass, galangal, and that familiar whisper of fermented fish. Yes, breakfast is soup. Your boat slows beside a vendor whose canoe is stacked with clay pots and small woven bags filled with dried herbs. She offers a taste of something, hard to identify, but sweet, chewy, and cooling, like coconut candy that fell in love with a throat lozenge. She tells you, through your guide, that these herbs are boiled into tea to help with heat stroke, headaches, and heartache. Especially heartache, she adds with a wink. The sugar softens the sadness. You buy a bag, obviously. Historians still argue whether floating markets originated as a reaction to flood-prone geography or as a byproduct of ancient trade along Southeast Asia's inland rivers. Some point to early Funan-era illustrations of river commerce. Others insist the floating market bloomed later, during French colonial rule, as locals adapted to new economic demands. Either way, floating markets are less about shopping and more about continuity, a choreography of boats and barter. You drift on, watching the boats weave in and out like fish schooling in practiced patterns. One man sells nothing but eggs, duck, chicken, and something described as forest egg that you decide not to question too deeply. Another hawks bundles of lotus flowers, the petals tightly furled, their scent rising like incense from a temple you haven't found yet. Your guide buys a bundle of morning glory, the vegetable, not the flower, and a small jar of fermented bean paste. He hands you a stick of grilled banana, sugar glazed, and wrapped in charred palm leaf, warm and slightly smoky. You take a bite, and it's like chewing on a sunrise. Near the center of the market, two boats are roped together to form a tiny kitchen. Here, a woman is making noom kachai, crispy rice cakes filled with chopped chives and brushed with a mixture of fish sauce, palm sugar, and vinegar. You take one, hot from the pan, and nearly burn your mouth. Totally worth it. She smiles at your face. Too fast, she says. She's not wrong. You ask how long she's been doing this. Since I had teeth, she says. The river current begins to shift slightly, and the boats start repositioning. It's subtle, like watching a lazy ballet. No one yells, no engines roar, just the shuffle of paddles and the occasional splash as someone rinses a ladle or spills tea overboard. A small boy floats past in a basin, not a boat, a basin. He holds a stick and appears completely in control. You wave. He does not wave back. He's got places to be. Your guide leans over. That was me, 20 years ago. You ask if he ever fell in. Oh yes, he says. Many times. But the water always catches you. You pass a boat selling nothing but sugar, solid palm cones, syrup in glass jars, dried coconut slices coated in palm caramel. You realize now, this is how sweetness moves through the region, not just in kitchens, but across rivers, tied up in nets and passed hand to hand between cousins, monks, and snack-happy grandmas. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the boat rock. The air smells of river mud and breakfast steam. Insects drone in the reeds, and you swear you hear someone softly singing, not to the crowd, but to their stock. A lullaby for mangoes. You drift a little longer, eating more than is wise. At some point, you're offered a small bag of pickled papaya and palm sugar. You chew it thoughtfully, wondering how many hours of your life have now been spent in various states of delicious, casting wide gold streaks across the water. The boats begin to thin. People paddle home with empty baskets, full bellies, and the sort of gentle fatigue that comes from honest trade. Your guide taps the oarsman. Time to head back. As you turn away from the floating market, you glance back at the little kitchen boats and sugar vendors, the egg seller, and the woman with her morning chive cakes. None of it feels staged. It's just a Tuesday. Or possibly Thursday. It doesn't matter. You feel like a jar of fish slowly fermenting in the warmth, changing, softening, sweetening. You lean back as the boat turns. Next stop, your guide says. Things are about to get even more flavorful. The road to the salt flats is long, flat, and hypnotically straight. You ride in the back of a tuk-tuk this time, its little engine buzzing like a sleepy dragonfly. The sun is climbing again, but the breeze from the open sides keeps the heat at bay. Barely. Your shirt clings to your back. The sugar you ate earlier is starting to feel like it's been converted directly into warmth. Soon the scenery changes. The trees thin. The water disappears. And the land stretches out, pale and glittering, as though the ocean had come here once, laid down for a nap, and never quite left. You've reached the salt fields. They look like mirrors. Thin, shimmering pools stretch to the horizon in neat, geometric grids, some water, some dry, all flat, and reflecting the sky like a trick of the gods. In the distance, a handful of workers trudge slowly across the fields, rakes in hand, their silhouettes doubled in the reflective surface below them. You step out of one of them waves and immediately feel the crunch of dry salt under your sandals. It crackles like snow, but there's nothing cold about it. The air is sharp with brine and heat, and the light bounces so fiercely off the ground that you squint through your hat brim like a suspicious detective. The man who waved approaches. He's older, with deep creases around his eyes and a straw hat that's seen more sun than most windowsills. He carries a bamboo rake, a wooden yoke across his shoulders, and the calm of someone who spent years asking salt to behave. You follow him onto one of the drier beds. He shows you how the seawater, diverted from nearby canals, is channeled into the shallow pans. As it evaporates under the punishing sun, a thin crust forms, crystalline, fine, and slightly pink. He drags the rake with slow, precise movements, coaxing the salt into neat piles. You ask if it's difficult work. He smiles. No more than asking a child to sit still. He hands you the rake, and you try. It's not heavy, but the drag of it against the ground is oddly stubborn. You attempt a graceful sweep. It results in a slightly sad salt swirl. He nods politely. The sun applauds by making you sweat in new and imaginative ways. You ask about the relationship between salt and sweetness in Khmer cooking. Your guide translates as the salt farmer begins to explain. Sugar is memory, he says, but salt is balance. Historians still argue whether salt production in Cambodia predates Chinese records from the 1st century CE or arrived later via Indian Ocean traders. What's certain is that salt was never just seasoning. It was currency, medicine, even an offering. In fact, salt and palm sugar were often bartered directly, one preserving fish, the other preserving peace at family dinners. The farmer points to a nearby shack where baskets of salt are drying in the shade. Beside them, a small crate contains cubes of black palm sugar, sticky and dense. He tells you that every salt worker receives a bit of sugar at the end of the week, not as payment, as a counterbalance. To remind the body it's still sweet inside, he says. You chew on that, philosophically and literally, as he hands you a sugar cube the size of a domino. It sticks to your teeth and leaves your fingers tacky. You don't mind. Behind the fields, you notice rows of large ceramic jars, their lids slightly ajar. You ask if it's Prahok. The farmer laughs. These are for salt lemons. He lifts the lid of one, revealing lemons packed tightly in coarse salt and their own juice, shriveled and shining like golden raisins caught in a salt storm. He pulls one out, slices it with a pocket knife, and offers you a sliver. You pop it into your mouth, not knowing what to expect. Boom. It's sour, intensely so, but rounded by a mellow saltiness that feels almost savory. There's bitterness too, but not the mean kind, more like a wise aunt with strong opinions. It's delicious and strange, and you want more. He tells you these preserved lemons are used in soups, curries, and sometimes even sweets. Yes, sweets. Mixed with palm sugar and crushed ice, they're turned into a drink that supposedly restores your soul. You make a note to find it. Immediately. You help him carry a yoke of salt baskets to the edge of the field. They weigh more than you'd expect. Dense, grainy, and alive with the sun. A few granules escape, catching the wind and landing on your tongue. It's perfect. No bitterness, no sharpness, just salt. He shows you how they dry it, laid out in flat trays, sometimes stirred with wooden paddles, sometimes left alone to listen to the sky. Some say the salt's flavor changes based on the phase of the moon. He shrugs at the idea, but doesn't deny it. You sip from a shared bottle of tamarind water. The salt farmer wipes his brow, then pulls out a small jar and opens it with a pop. Inside, palm sugar pickles. You blink. They shimmer in syrup like golden jellyfish. He offers you one. You taste. Somehow both salty and sweet, soft and crunchy, almost floral. You've officially entered the stage of your journey where every food breaks the rules and improves them. A distant bell rings, lunch call for the workers. He gestures for you to join them, but your guide whispers that there's one more stop before you eat. A little shrine, he says. to the fish that never spoiled. You laugh, but he's already walking. You wave goodbye to the salt farmer, whose smile is as calm as the fields themselves. You're slightly sunburned, lightly salted, and starting to feel like a walking pretzel. To the shrine winds through a patch of scrubland where sugar palms lean like sleepy dancers and the soil crunches faintly underfoot. Your guide walks ahead, humming a tune that sounds suspiciously like the rice field lullaby, but slower now, as if even melodies need to rest between courses. You pass a water buffalo snoozing in a puddle and a scarecrow wearing a retired motorcycle helmet. Nature and humor side by side, as always. At the edge of a dried-up stream, tucked beneath a canopy of banyan roots and colorful prayer flags, you find it. A tiny, lopsided shrine made of crumbling brick and wood, painted with peeling red lacquer. 2 incense sticks lean at odd angles from a dish filled with dried rice, salt, and a single silver fish figurine resting on a bed of palm sugar crystals. Your guide gestures reverently. The shrine to the fish that never spoiled. You wait for a punchline. None comes. He explains. Long ago, a fisherman caught a catfish larger than any he'd seen before. It fed the whole village, and the leftover meat was packed in a jar with salt and sugar to ferment. Weeks passed, then months, then years. But the jar never soured. It aged like wine. Sweet, rich, perfect. People came from far away just to taste it. They called it the sleeping fish. Historians still argue whether this tale is literal, metaphorical, or just the result of someone mislabeling a very lucky jar. But even skeptics admit that legends often linger for a reason. Shrines like this one dot the countryside, not on maps, but in memories. You kneel down and light a stick of incense. The smoke curls slowly upward, wrapping itself around the hanging vines like a message only the plants can read. The shrine isn't grand, but it's full of detail. A child's drawing of a fish, laminated and nailed to the side. A bottle cap filled with fermented tamarind paste. A plastic toy boat. Someone even left a boiled egg. Offerings, yes, but also reminders. You ask your guide if anyone still believes the story. He shrugs. Belief is like palm sugar. You don't always see it, but you taste it. He points out a nearby tree, from which hang dozens of tiny paper jars strung with red thread, tokens from villagers who seek kitchen luck. Some are scrawled with recipes, others with names. One simply reads, "No mold this year, please." You smile. Relatable. The shrine sits silent except for the occasional chirp of a gecko hiding in the bricks. A cicada buzzes overhead. And then soft footsteps. An elderly woman appears, carrying a basket filled with banana leaf bundles. She bows to the shrine, places a bundle beside the figurine, and murmurs a blessing. She notices you and waves. Your guide speaks to her briefly, then whispers, "She's the granddaughter of the fisherman." Or so she says. She offers you one of the banana leaf packets, nodding solemnly. You unwrap it carefully. Inside, sticky rice, salted fish flakes, and a thread of caramel-colored palm sugar running through the center like a sweet little surprise. You take a bite. It's unreasonably good. The fish is gentle, almost buttery. The sugar balances it out with a warmth that lingers at the edges of your tongue. It doesn't taste like contrast. It tastes like agreement. You ask how it's made. She just smiles. "Start with patience," she says, "and don't forget to thank the jar." She tells you this was her grandfather's favorite meal, and he claimed it tasted best under a banyan tree with a full belly and no complaints. You look up. The branches sway gently above. Your belly is very full, and you've stopped complaining hours ago. She points to the silver fish at the shrine. He still listens, you know. You finish the last bite and feel like you've just eaten a chapter from a forgotten cookbook. Your guide stands and dusts off his hands. "Ready for dessert?" You blink. "That wasn't it?" He grins. "We're going to the kitchen school. You raise an eyebrow. Like a modern culinary school? No, he says. A school run by a grandma with no formal training and an unreasonable number of coconut graters. Naturally. As you walk back through the trees, the shrine fades behind you, half hidden by roots and history. But you feel it, like a story that's still whispering. You arrive at the kitchen school even just after midday, the sun now fully committed to being unreasonable. The house is modest, raised slightly on stilts with wide eaves casting deep shade. Beneath them, rows of mortar and pestle sets sit like students waiting for class to begin. There's a thatched roof pavilion to one side, where fans made from woven palm fronds turn lazily in the heat, accomplishing nothing and proud of it. Your guide announces your presence with a rhythmic clack of 2 wooden spoons. Out steps Grandma Sam, not a grandma, the grandma. Her frame is compact but sturdy, like she was carved from coconut shell and tempered in soup steam. She wears a floral apron over patterned pajamas and carries a ladle like it's an extension of her soul. Her face is sun-kissed, her laugh is unapologetic, and her voice could quiet a rooster mid-squawk. You bow politely. She squints, then offers you a piece of candied ginger. You're seated at a low table beside 3 children and 1 very serious-looking cat. Grandma Sam introduces today's theme, desserts with memory. Not just sweets, but the kinds of sweets that remember their origins, that whisper family secrets into your mouth when no one else is looking. First up, numpli ai, little sticky rice dumplings filled with melted palm sugar and coated in grated coconut. They look innocent. You poke one. It jiggles defiantly. Under Grandma Sam's watchful eye, you roll the rice flour into balls, gently press a cube of palm sugar into each, then seal them like secrets. One bursts prematurely. She smacks your hand, not hard, just enough to reset your attitude. You must be gentle with sugar, she says. It listens. The dumplings are boiled until they float like sleepy ghosts, then rolled in fresh coconut like they've just emerged from a tropical snowstorm. You take a bite. The sugar inside is molten, earthy, slightly smoky. The outer layer is soft, chewy, and just a little bit salty. You taste that? She says. Balance. Historians still argue whether Cambodia's dessert traditions developed alongside royal cuisine, Buddhist monastic recipes, or were born in village kitchens like this one, where coconut, sugar, salt, and rice become every combination imaginable. What's clear is that palm sugar is the soul of it all, not just an ingredient, a memory preserver. As the cat silently judges your technique, Grandma Sam moves on to her personal favorite, Bai Dom Nabe Chung Chung, sweet sticky rice, gently roasted in a banana leaf tube with palm sugar and mung beans. The texture, like warm velvet with a hint of toast. The smell, a mix of campfire and kindness. You help prepare the banana leaves, scraping them clean with the back of a knife, then folding them into careful cylinders. She shows you how to layer the rice, sugar, and beans with a precision that feels oddly like architecture. One child eats half the filling before it hits the leaf. Grandma Sam doesn't even blink. You ask if she's ever written down her recipes. She snorts. For who? A microwave? Touché. She explains how palm sugar used to be shaped into cones and carried in woven bamboo tubes during long journeys. Not just for sweetness, but for energy, barter, even ceremony. In weddings, it was often paired with salt in small dishes, symbolizing the hope that a couple's life would be both sweet and strong. She pulls out a small tin box. Inside are tiny palm sugar animals, a bird, a turtle, a fish, all shaped by hand and left to harden in the sun. She made them yesterday, just for fun. You ask how. She shrugs. I tell the sugar what I need. It listens. You nibble the turtle's head. It tastes like molasses with a tropical accent. As you sip a glass of cold sugarcane juice, one of the children sets out tiny clay stoves with coconut charcoal. Grandma Sam demonstrates sankhya lapov, steamed pumpkin filled with coconut custard. It's rich, creamy, and slightly mysterious. The texture sits somewhere between flan and cloud. You help crack open the duck eggs. She approves. You help scrape the pumpkin clean. She redoes it herself. "Better," she says, deadpan. The custard is poured in, and the pumpkin lid is set gently on top, like a crown on a sleeping queen. You place it over the coals and wait. While it steams, Grandma Sam settles into a story about how, in her youth, there was one jar of palm sugar hidden in the kitchen that only her grandmother touched. It was reserved for visitors who'd traveled far, or children who'd had a very bad day. She only tasted from that jar once, after falling into a pond and losing an entire batch of pickled mangoes. "It was the best thing I ever tasted," she says, eyes half closed. "Tasted like forgiveness." The children are quiet now. The cat is asleep in a wok. Finally, she lifts the lid from the steaming pumpkin. The smell is glorious. Sweet, nutty, rich with coconut, and something that smells faintly like rain on stone. She cuts a slice and hands it to you on a banana leaf plate. You take a bite. The custard is warm and silky. The pumpkin holds it like a hug. You sigh, possibly too loudly. She smiles. Good sugar, good dreams. You help her clean up. The serious-looking cat does nothing. The children argue over who gets the last sticky rice dumpling. Grandma Sam takes it. Of course. As you say your goodbyes, she places a small wrapped packet in your palm. For when you forget what sweetness feels like, you promise not to forget. As you leave, your guide turns and whispers, "Next stop, sugar palms." The trees themselves. Of course. You've met the fish. You've met the salt. Now it's time to meet the giants rise on the horizon like ancient sentinels, tall and lean, with fronds splayed against the sky like feathered fans from some forgotten empire. You ride on the back of a motorbike now, hanging on as your guide navigates a winding dirt path lined with rice fields and dragonflies. The air smells of warm earth, distant smoke, and something lightly floral, jasmine perhaps, or just the promise of rain. As you near the grove, you begin to notice the ropes, long, swaying ropes that run from tree to tree, some with wooden ladders tied to their trunks, others with hanging gourds or bamboo containers nestled high in their crowns. You stop beneath a particularly tall palm, where a man, shirtless and barefoot, clambers up a narrow bamboo ladder with the kind of grace that only comes from years of knowing exactly where to put your feet. He moves slowly, but surely, like a song you've heard before, but never understood until now. This is a Tonlé Sap, a sugar palm climber. Your guide nods. He's harvesting the dreams. You blink. The what now? The sap, he says, but it only flows right before dawn and late in the afternoon. In between, the tree rests, like all dreamers. You stand in the shade as the climber reaches the top and begins tapping the blossom, slicing it gently with a knife and attaching a clay pot beneath to catch the sap as it drips. It's a delicate business. Cut too deep and the blossom won't yield. Cut too little and the sap dries inside. Historians still argue whether the ancient Khmers cultivated palm sugar systematically or relied on wild harvesting. Temple bas-reliefs show scenes of palm climbing and sugaring, but documentation is scarce. What's clear is that this practice is old, older than cities, older than most myths. The man climbs down slowly and shows you the pot, already partially filled with cloudy white sap. He smiles, offers you a taste. It's thin, cool, and faintly sweet, like a ghost of syrup. Wait 1 day, he says, and it's sugar. Wait 3 days, and it's wine. Wait 5 days, and it's vinegar. That's palm magic. You follow him to a shed where his wife is already boiling down yesterday's harvest in a wide iron pan over an open fire. The sap bubbles gently, slowly thickening, releasing steam that smells like toffee and campfire stories. A huge wooden paddle rests nearby, used to stir the mixture until it thickens to syrup or hardens into jaggery blocks. She hands you a spoonful. The warm syrup clings to your tongue, deep, earthy, with a mineral finish that tells you it hasn't traveled far. It tastes like the land it came from, like smoke and light and the tree's quiet generosity. Palm sugar, you learn, has a low melting point, which makes it perfect for sweetening without overpowering. Unlike white sugar, which asserts itself in high, sharp notes, palm sugar hums in the background, rich and round. It's the bass line of Cambodian desserts. They show you the molds, small wooden trays, sometimes carved with family symbols, into which the thick syrup is poured and left to harden. Each block is stamped, literally or figuratively, with the hands that made it. No two look the same. Some are shaped like flowers, others like coins. One resembles a turtle. You ask about the turtles. Slow sweetness, the man says. It stays longer. You help pour a few molds yourself, dribbling sticky lines across the wood like a clumsy artist. The couple laughs kindly, then lets you stir the syrup for a bit. Your arms protest after 30 seconds. They nod approvingly. Now you respect the pancake, his wife says. You ask how they learned to make sugar. She shrugs. My mother, her father, the tree tells us. As the last batch begins to cool, they pull out something special, sugar flowers. Made by whipping cooled syrup until it turns into a light paste, then pressed quickly into molds before it hardens completely. These are festival treats, rare and delicate. You pop one in your mouth, it melts like spun silk, leaving behind the warmth of something you didn't know you missed. The husband walks you to a grove of younger trees. You notice they're ringed with little bamboo tubes and scratches near the trunk. These trees are still learning, he says. They give less, but they dream harder. At the edge of the grove stands a shrine, not for fish this time, but for the palms themselves. A carved face stares out from the bark of the oldest tree, its eyes smoothed by time. Offerings lie at the base, rice, salt, and a small cake wrapped in palm leaf. Your guide kneels briefly. You do the same. You ask if people ever get tired of making sugar. He shakes his head. When the sugar is good, you forget the heat. You sip more sap, this time chilled in a bamboo tube with a sprig of mint. The flavor is clean, faintly fruity. You feel it in your bones, hydrating, softening, reminding your body that life begins to lower, casting long shadows across the grove. You hear bird song and the creak of rope ladders swaying in the breeze. Tomorrow, the climber says, we boil again. The couple waves as you depart, sticky-fingered and slightly sun-drunk, your shirt now carrying the faint scent of smoke and syrup. You leave with a pocket full of sugar blocks and a head full of slow thoughts. Your guide grins. Now you're ready for the market of old sweets. You grin back. Only if I can walk this time. He laughs. The old sweets market isn't marked on any map. Your guide simply gestures down a narrow lane between rice paddies and says, that way until you smell caramel, which, as directions go, is far more effective than GPS. You walk. The breeze is soft, the light golden, and your legs are beginning to develop a rhythm, half stroll, half sugar-induced float. Along the way, you pass a man selling bamboo hats, a girl swinging from a banyan branch, and a row of ducks with what appears to be very urgent business. Then there it is. The smell hits first, like every grandmother's kitchen condensed into a perfume bottle and left uncorked. Burnt sugar, toasted rice, coconut smoke, and just the faintest hint of anise. Your feet follow your nose before your brain even registers. The old sweets market isn't grand. It's a narrow lane beneath woven palm roofs, stalls pressed shoulder to shoulder, and colors everywhere. Golden browns, deep violets, coconut whites, and sugar-glazed yellows. You half expect to see gingerbread walls and gumdrop guards. But no, it's real, and possibly sacred. Your guide points to a stall draped in banana leaves. Start there. That's where sugar tells its oldest stories. The vendor, an elderly man with silver eyebrows and no visible hurry, offers you a triangle of noom ansam, sticky rice filled with banana and mung bean, wrapped in leaf and steamed for hours until it becomes dense, sweet, and satisfying like a warm memory. You bite in. The palm sugar has caramelized just slightly at the edges, giving it the faintest crackle. You chew slowly here, he says. Out of respect. You nod, still chewing. At the next stall, a woman is hand-shaping a num crock, small sesame balls stuffed with molten palm sugar paste and deep-fried. They hiss when they hit the oil, then emerge golden and crisp, each one a tiny planet of sweetness orbiting the idea of perfection. She lets you try one. It crunches, then oozes, then melts. Eat two, she says. One for your stomach, one for your soul. Done. Historians still argue whether these recipes date back to the Angkorian royal courts or emerged from post-war village kitchens, where ingredients were few and creativity was high. Most agree that sweets were once reserved for special occasions, weddings, monk ordinations, New Year celebrations, which explains why every bite still tastes like a party you weren't invited to, but are welcome at anyway. You wander from stall to stall, sampling delicacies with names as poetic as they are unpronounceable. One treat, made from dried jackfruit soaked in palm syrup, is called the dream that waited. Another, a chewy coconut bar speckled with toasted sesame, is known locally as Sleepwalker's Breakfast. At a stall draped with old photos, a woman is selling noom shet shin, fried bananas drizzled with palm sugar syrup and sprinkled with sticky rice grains. She shows you a picture of her mother, holding a wok the size of a baby bathtub. She made these every Friday, said it kept the house kind. You buy three, one for your mouth, one for the house, one for reasons unknown. Near the end of the lane, a young man is carving tiny palm sugar sculptures, flowers, animals, even a miniature version of Angkor Wat. He melts the sugar gently over coals, shapes it with a small spoon and calloused fingers, and dips in each piece in cold water to harden. You admire a little elephant. He hands it to you. For strength, he says. You feel oddly honored, even as you bite its ear off. Children weave through the crowd, their hands sticky, their laughter louder than the vendors' voices. An old radio plays a folk song about a woman who cried sugar tears when her lover left. Someone sings along in falsetto, just off-key enough to be charming. You turn a corner and find the quiet sweets. Here, a woman is selling numpong lan, soft rice cakes infused with fermented palm sap. The flavor is mild, slightly fizzy, with the ghost of sugar hiding behind a pillow of starch. She calls it the sleep sweet. Travelers eat it before long journeys. She offers you a bag. Take this for sunset. It's good with silence. You pass a final stall where a teenage girl is painting palm syrup onto crisped rice discs using a tiny brush made from lemongrass stalks. She's calm, focused, and covered in sugar dust. Her discs are crisp and thin as lace, kissed with smoke and sunshine. You ask if she sells many. No, she says, but each one is my favorite. You buy one. She smiles like you've understood something important. The walk back is slow. You carry more sugar than is probably legal. Your fingers are sticky. Your heart is suspiciously full. You sit beneath a tamarind tree to rest, pulling out the sleep sweet from earlier. It's still warm. You eat it in 3 unhurried bites. Somewhere, a child is humming. Your guide joins you on the sugar is cooling into memory. Now, he says, there's only one place left. You raise an eyebrow. Heaven? Close, he grins. The kitchens that never stop cooking, Now you groan, softened into something gentler. You ride again, this time in the back of a wooden cart pulled by an old tractor that sounds like it's powered by fermented coconut juice and optimism. As you jostle along a dusty path lined with lemongrass bushes and sleepy chickens, your guide leans back and sighs. "This next stop is dangerous," he says. You glance over, alarmed. He grins. "You might never want to leave." You're headed toward a cluster of houses known by locals as the kitchens that never stop cooking. Not a market, not a restaurant, more like a network of family kitchens, each devoted to one dish, made slowly, expertly, endlessly. A few supply monks, others send sweets to weddings. All are powered by sugar, fire, and stories. You arrive in the late afternoon. Smoke curls lazily from chimney tops. Dogs sleep in doorways. And the air? Oh, the air is delicious before you've even eaten anything. You're welcomed by a trio of women, each with flour-dusted hands and matching grins. One of them hands you a cup of sugar palm tea. It's golden and herbal, faintly smoky with a whisper of sweetness that tastes like someone boiled down a sunrise. You sip, and the world slows. Your first stop is Auntie Bofa's kitchen. She specializes in num saku, tiny tapioca balls stuffed with sweet pickled radish, peanuts, and caramelized palm sugar. Each one is rolled by hand, steamed gently, then brushed with garlic oil. You help her roll a few. It's like crafting edible marbles, squishy, translucent, and surprisingly emotional. "I cried once because I dropped 20, she says. "They stuck to the dog." You try one. The bite is soft, slightly chewy, then boom, sweet, salty, savory, nutty, all in perfect confusion. Your mouth does a happy little dance. You do not apologize. She hands you a cloth-wrapped bundle. "For later, or now. I don't judge." Next door is Uncle Rin's specialty. Palm sugar custard steam cakes, known locally as num pleka, made with fermented rice flour, coconut milk, and liquid sugar tapped from his own palms. He stirs the batter in a wide clay bowl, then pours it into tiny clay pots arranged over a bamboo steamer. A delicate steam fog rises, perfuming the kitchen like a dessert sauna. "Don't open too soon," he warns. "You'll let out the sweetness." You nod solemnly. No one wants that. He lifts one carefully and hands it to you. It's warm, pillowy, and jiggles with the conviction of a sleep-deprived pudding. You eat it with your fingers. The texture is cloud-like, and the flavor is all warmth, rich and mellow, with the unmistakable depth of real palm sugar. "Soft food makes soft hearts," he says. You believe him. Down the lane, a grandmother and her grandson are making krelan, sticky rice with black beans, coconut, and palm sugar stuffed into hollow bamboo stalks and slow roasted over charcoal for hours. You watch as they rotate the stalks methodically, the outer layers blackening, while the inside turns into a dense, caramel-infused rice log. The smell alone could cause diplomacy. When it's ready, the grandmother cracks the bamboo open with a practiced smack and peels it back like a present. The rice inside is steaming and slightly crisp at the edges from where the sugar caramelized against the bamboo walls. You take a bite. It's sweet, yes, but earthy too, comforting in a way that feels ancestral. "You can travel with it for days," she says. "As long as you don't eat it all on the first night." You consider your odds. Historians still argue whether krelan originated as a monk's portable ration or as a festive treat for harvest season. Some say its roots go back to ancient rice rituals. Others believe it was invented by accident when someone dropped sugar into a cooking fire. Either way, the bamboo stays. The smoke stays. The sugar, thankfully, stays. You spend hours drifting from kitchen to kitchen, each home a variation on the same theme: quiet concentration, gentle heat, and the slow alchemy of palm sugar transforming everyday ingredients into something worthy of devotion. One woman makes sugar ink, a thick, glossy reduction of palm syrup used to write messages on ceremonial cakes. She paints a word for you on a rice cracker. Travel. In the kitchen, a child teaches you to shape numla pa, a crepe made from fermented rice batter and stuffed with grated coconut and molten sugar. She flips hers effortlessly. Yours folds like a love letter from someone trying their best. Good enough, she says. The sugar forgives you. As twilight settles, a group gathers around a fire pit to share the last batch of the day. Palm sugar and rice dumplings dropped into coconut milk and simmered until the broth thickens into a syrupy soup. The elders say this is the good night dish, the one that signals the stove can sleep, the spoons can rest, and the sugar can start dreaming again. You sip it slowly. The sweetness is familiar now, not loud, not eager, just there, like a lullaby that's been passed down in steam and scent. You lean back on a low bench, full in every way. Your guide sits beside you, a bowl in hand. Well? He asks. You pause, smile, and exhale. I'm not sure I have bones anymore. He laughs. You close your eyes for a moment, hearing the soft crackle of firewood, the hiss of something still steaming, and the distant sound of someone beating a coconut against stone. Then a whisper. Tomorrow, someone says, we make the sugar that floats. Your eyes open slowly. Of course, there's always another story. But for tonight, the kitchens are done, as mornings do, with a softness that wraps itself around the sleepy landscape like the corner of a well-worn blanket. The kitchens have quieted, the fire's now ash, but the air still hums faintly with sugar, like even the soil can't forget the scent. Today's journey is smaller, quieter. You walk slowly. Every joint creaks like bamboo in the wind, but your belly is content, your heart even more so. Your guide leads you along a narrow path that hugs a wide, shimmering pond. Lilies bloom lazily on the surface, dragonflies sketch spirals in the air, and birds with names you'll never learn sing songs without choruses. You arrive at a simple house on stilts, its walls faded with time and its roof patched in more than one place. There's a wooden sign dangling from the eaves, hand-painted in blue. The sugar that floats. You glance at your guide. Why float? You ask. He smiles. Because the best sugar doesn't sink. It remembers how to rise. Inside, an elderly couple greets you with nods and warm eyes. Their names, you learn, are Grandmother Kim and Grandfather Teth. She is small and sprightly. He moves like a tree that learned to walk late in life. They don't speak much. Words seem optional here. They motion for you to sit at a round table beneath a woven ceiling fan, turning slow as syrup. Kim sets down a glass bowl of clear water, then drops a lump of amber sugar into it. It floats. You blink. She adds a few thin slices of pickled ginger and a splash of lime, then offers you a spoon. You sip. It's not quite a dessert, not quite a drink. It's something else, a cooling tonic with brightness and body. The sugar dissolves slowly, releasing waves of gentle sweetness that don't coat your tongue so much as whisper across it. You drink this when you're too hot to think, says Grandfather Teth, or when someone breaks your heart politely. The recipe, he explains, is simple. Aged palm sugar left to dry in a clay oven for 3 full moons, then pressed into blocks and shaved into floating shards. Only the lightest pieces float. The rest sink and are saved for syrup or soap. It's a test in a way. We say the sugar chooses its mood. Historians still argue whether this floating sugar technique is ancient or simply poetic marketing. There are mentions of similar preparations in royal texts and temple offerings, but no clear lineage. What's clear is its effect: cooling, calming, and oddly tender. Grandmother Kim pulls out a small tin filled with sugar pieces shaped like leaves and birds. For weddings, she says, and stubborn coughs. She shows you how to make the syrup base, simmering shaved sugar with pandan leaves, lime zest, and rainwater collected from ceramic jars. The smell is subtle, green and gold, like sweet grass after a monsoon. As it cools, she ladles it over soft cubes of coconut jelly, then adds slices of jackfruit and banana flour. The final touch, a single floating sugar shard, balanced like a paper boat on a sea of gentle sweetness. You eat it with reverence. It's floral, soft, with layers that unfold like old paper. Sweetness, yes, but also warmth, fruit, and a tiny thread of salt that keeps you from drifting too far into indulgence. Dessert, she says, should feel like forgiveness. You nod. Your teeth are beginning to believe in kindness again. Outside, they show you their sugar shelf, a long plank lined with clay pots and wooden molds, each labeled with a hand-painted symbol, one for weddings, one for mourning, one for travel, and one for no particular reason at all. That last one, Grandfather Teth says, is the most important. Because not everything needs a reason. You help shave a fresh block of sugar. The process is slow, careful. The sugar yields easily, like it wants to become something. You hold a curl in your palm. It's warm from friction and smells like memory. In the afternoon, children arrive with empty bottles and shy smiles. Kim fills each one with sugar syrup and slips in a mint leaf. They scatter like ants, each bottle swinging from a bit of string. They call it asterisk cloud juice asterisk. You're handed one too. Your name written on the label in charcoal. It's surprisingly refreshing and possibly addictive. You sit under the stilt house's shade, sipping your drink as the day warms and the pond glistens. The sugar in your bottle floats still, just barely, like it knows it's not quite ready to disappear. Grandfather Teth sits beside you. You know, he says, sugar wasn't always sweet. You raise an eyebrow. He nods. In the old stories, it was bitter first. It learned sweetness slowly. You don't know if that's folklore or wisdom. Probably both. You watch as Grandmother Kim places another lump of sugar in the pond, just a piece, wrapped in banana leaf and tied with string. An offering, she says, for the water spirits, to thank them for keeping things soft. Your guide returns with a quiet smile. Festival? You ready for the festival? He chuckles. It's nearly evening. The lanterns are up. The pickled fish has been blessed. The sugar is waiting. You stand slowly, reluctantly. One last sip. One last curl of sweetness melting against your tongue. To the Sugar Lantern Festival glows before sunset, even finishes its curtain call. You follow your guide through a field where fireflies are just beginning their slow, drowsy ballet, and the air carries the scent of torches, lemongrass, and something faintly vinegary that you're told is ceremonial fish brine. You decide not to ask. The village has transformed. By day, it was soft colors and slow spoons. By night, it's amber silk and laughter muffled under palm leaf roofs. Strings of paper lanterns, each one shaped like a fruit or flower, hang from every tree, fence post, and noodle cart. You pass by floating trays of offerings, jasmine blossoms, banana slices, and naturally cubes of pickled fish wrapped in palm sugar glaze. They say if your fish floats at midnight, your guide whispers, your heart is telling the truth. You squint. What if it sinks? He grins. Then you lied to your stomach. You file that away as one of those regional truths that make less sense the more you understand it. At the center of the festival is a long, low table covered in everything you've seen, smelled, or tasted over the last few days. Kralin, num ansum, rice dumplings, syrup flowers, and piles of candied ginger wrapped in banana leaves. But tonight the prize dish is something new. Pickled fish candy. Yes, you read that right. Your guide leads you to a woman stirring a pot that smells like sugar and fish sauce, had a polite but intense disagreement. She introduces herself as Auntie Dara. Her specialty? Boiling pickled fish, gutted, boneless, tamed by vinegar, into a thick paste and folding it into palm sugar until it's reduced to chewy, salty sweet nuggets. These were once royal travel rations, she explains, for nobles who didn't want to choose between dessert and protein. You try one. It's complex. First comes the palm sugar, rich, caramel, familiar. Then the fish tiptoes in, savory and bold, like someone invited miso to a candy parade. It's not quite delicious, but it's certainly not boring. Your tongue doesn't know whether to hug you or file a complaint. You eat 3, Dara says. That way your tongue doesn't win. Children dart between tables, their mouths sticky, their hands carrying tiny woven trays of sugar offerings. At one station, teenagers are carving soft palm sugar into the shape of local animals, geckos, riverfish, owls. At another, a woman is dipping fried, pickled eggplant in syrup and handing them out like party favors. Everywhere, people are laughing with the kind of ease that only comes after a full stomach and a long harvest. Historians still argue whether the Sugar Lantern Festival predates the Khmer Empire or emerged more recently as a playful rebellion against temple austerity. Some say the pickled fish was originally a mistake, left out in the sugar house during monsoon season. Others claim it was an offering to appease spirits who had both sweet teeth and sour tempers. Whatever its origin, tonight the village agrees on one thing. It's the best reason to stay awake past sunset. As the moon climbs, the music starts. Soft bamboo flutes, hand drums, and a plucked string instrument that sounds like it's playing underwater lullabies. You sit with your back against a palm trunk, sipping sugar water tinged with lemongrass, and watch as the lanterns are lit, whispers a wish into the flame, and sends it upward. The lanterns rise gently, carried by heat and hope, and soon the sky fills with floating lights like lazy fireflies that forgot how to fall. Yours is shaped like a sugar spoon. You whisper something into the flame, not a wish exactly, more like a thank you, and let it go. It wobbles a little, then straightens, then rises with the others until it's just a glimmer in the night. Someone nearby is frying palm sugar fritters in a wide iron wok. You hear the sizzle. You smell the syrup. You realize you still have room. You've made it, your guide says. To what? To the edge of sweetness. After this, it's just memory. You chew a fritter slowly. It tastes like the story you didn't know you'd been telling. A little strange, mostly warm, and just sweet enough to remember. Nearby, an old man is telling jokes to a group of children. Something about a sugar thief and a talking fish. The children howl with laughter. You don't get the punchline. You don't need to. Grandmother Kim appears beside you, holding a bowl of something cold. It's noom paoi, frozen banana slices soaked in palm syrup and coconut milk, left to set until the syrup turns glassy. You take one. It crackles, then melts into your mouth like it's been waiting for you all night. You close your eyes. There's music, laughter, lanterns, fish, sugar, and somehow, impossibly, all of it works. The wind picks up slightly. A few lanterns dip and bob, caught in a playful breeze. You wonder if your spoon is still floating up there, looking down. The festival goes on, slowly, gently, sweetly. No one's in a hurry. The festival has turned into a memory with crumbs. Palm leaves are still swaying, a few lanterns dangle like sleepy balloons caught in tree branches, and someone, somewhere, is still playing that flute. You wake slowly, a little sticky, a lot full, and entirely unbothered by the minor fact that your pillow was half a woven basket and half a folded sarong. Your guide appears with a cup of sugar-sweetened lemongrass tea and a kind expression. Today, he says, you meet the sugar hunters. You blink. We're hunting sugar now? He nods. Before you ate it, Someone climbed a tree for it. And so off you go. You walk through groves of towering sugar palms, trees that stand like monks in meditation, tall and still, each one crowned with spiky leaves that whisper softly overhead. Beneath them, ropes dangle, bamboo ladders sway, and clay jars hang from cut stems, slowly filling with sap. This is where the sugar begins, not in markets, not in kitchens, but up there. A young man named Vanek waves from halfway up a tree. He's barefoot, balancing on a notched pole like it's a sidewalk. He doesn't shout, just nods like it's completely normal to be 20 feet in the air before breakfast. You watch him move, agile and gentle, like the tree is something sacred. He sings to them sometimes, your guide whispers. Says it makes the sap sweeter. Vanek lowers a jar. It's filled with pale, cloudy liquid, sugar palm sap. Fresh, raw, a little fizzy. You're handed a sip. It's unlike anything you've tasted. Light, earthy, with a whisper of vanilla and a tickle of fermentation. It spoils fast, Vanek says, once he's climbed down. So we boil it before it becomes wine. You follow the process. The sap is poured into wide, shallow pans and set over a wood fire. The flames lick the pots with quiet hunger. As the liquid bubbles, it thickens into syrup, then paste, then soft, golden lumps of palm sugar. It's hypnotic. The bubbling, the steam, the occasional hiss of wood too green to burn clean. You sit near the fire, watching a woman stir the syrup with a wide bamboo paddle. She hums. The scent is everything: molasses, campfire, banana bread, and something like sun-warmed bark. When it's ready, she drops spoonfuls onto banana leaves. They cool quickly, hardening into discs the color of afternoon sun. You touch one. It's warm, a little sticky, and somehow content. These are thnat cakes, the base sugar that fuels everything you've eaten so far. No factories, no conveyor belts, just trees, fire, patience. Historians still argue whether palm sugar predates cane sugar in Southeast Asia. Some say sugar palms were the first domesticated trees in the region. Others believe they were simply more convenient, requiring less water, thriving in poor soil, and offering fruit, wood, and sap all at once. Whatever the truth, the sugar palm is woven into every layer of life here. The leaves become roofs, the trunks become boats, the sap becomes sweetness, or, if left to ferment, morning regret. You're shown how the hardened sugar is packed, layered with dried leaves, tied with jute string, and carried to market in baskets balanced on shoulder poles. Each bundle smells faintly of rain and smoke. They say if your sugar smells like ash, one woman says, you made it with love. You try shaping a few yourself, pouring the hot syrup into round molds made from split bamboo. It's harder than it looks. Your first one comes out lopsided. The second melts through a hole. The third, almost passable. The sugar makers cheer like you just invented fire. A child hands you a tiny disc shaped like a turtle. For slow energy, she says. You pocket it, just in case. The day grows warm, but the sugar makers never rush. Each step is deliberate, each stir a ritual. You start to realize that the pace of sugar is the pace of rest. Boil too fast, and it scorches. Pack too early, and it crumbles. It's not about speed, it's about listening. Vanek returns from another tree, balancing 3 fresh jars. This one, he says, lifting a jar proudly, is from the oldest tree. Her sap is soft. You ask how old. No one remembers, he shrugs. She was old when my grandmother was a baby. You sip the sap. It's different. Gentler, smoother, almost floral. You're not sure if that's the power of suggestion or truth. Maybe both. Someone sets a bowl of rice near the fire, topped with a spoonful of palm sugar and a slice of salted coconut. It's humble, warm, and quietly profound. This, your guide says, is what they eat after a long climb. You eat slowly. One bite, then another. It tastes like exhaustion wrapped in kindness. The sun begins to dip again, staining the sugar groves gold. The trees seem taller in this light, more solemn. The jars sway slightly, catching glints of sun. The festival has turned into a memory with crumbs. Palm leaves are still swaying, a few lanterns dangle like sleepy balloons caught in tree branches, and someone, somewhere, is still playing that flute. You wake slowly, a little sticky, a lot full, and entirely unbothered by the minor fact that your pillow was half a woven basket and half a folded sarong. Your guide appears with a cup of sugar-sweetened lemongrass tea and a kind expression. "Today," he says, "you meet the sugar hunters." You blink. "We're hunting sugar now?" He nods. "Before you ate it, someone climbed a tree for it." And so off you go. You walk through groves of towering sugar palms, trees that stand like monks in meditation, tall and still, each one crowned with spiky leaves that whisper softly overhead. Beneath them, ropes dangle, bamboo ladders sway, and clay jars hang from cut stems, slowly filling with sap. This is where the sugar begins, not in markets, not in kitchens, but up there. A young man named Vanek waves from halfway up a tree. He's barefoot, balancing on a notched pole like it's a sidewalk. He doesn't shout, just nods like it's completely normal to be 20 feet in the air before breakfast. You watch him move, agile and gentle, like the tree is something sacred. He sings to them sometimes, your guide whispers. Says it makes the sap sweeter. Vanek lowers a jar. It's filled with pale, cloudy liquid, sugar palm sap. Fresh, raw, a little fizzy. You're handed a sip. It's unlike anything you've tasted. Light, earthy, with a whisper of vanilla and a tickle of fermentation. "It spoils fast," Vanek says, once he's climbed down. "So we boil it before it becomes wine." You follow the process. The sap is poured into wide, shallow pans and set over a wood fire. The flames lick the pots with quiet hunger. As the liquid bubbles, it thickens into syrup, then paste, then soft, golden lumps of palm sugar. It's hypnotic. The bubbling, the steam, the occasional hiss of wood too green to burn clean. You sit near the fire, watching a woman stir the syrup with a wide bamboo paddle. She hums. The scent is everything: molasses, campfire, banana bread, and something like sun-warmed bark. When it's ready, she drops spoonfuls onto banana leaves. They cool quickly, hardening into discs the color of afternoon sun. You touch one. It's warm, a little sticky, and somehow content. These are thnat cakes, the base sugar that fuels everything you've eaten so far. No factories, no conveyor belts, just trees, fire, patience. Historians still argue whether palm sugar predates cane sugar in Southeast Asia. Some say sugar palms were the first domesticated trees in the region. Others believe they were simply more convenient, requiring less water, thriving in poor soil, and offering fruit, wood, and sap all at once. Whatever the truth, the sugar palm is woven into every layer of life here. The leaves become roofs, the trunks become boats, the sap becomes sweetness, or, if left to ferment, morning regret. You're shown how the hardened sugar is packed, layered with dried leaves, tied with jute string, and carried to market in baskets balanced on shoulder poles. Each bundle smells faintly of rain and smoke. They say if your sugar smells like ash, one woman says, you made it with love. You try shaping a few yourself, pouring the hot syrup into round molds made from split bamboo. It's harder than it looks. Your first one comes out lopsided. The second melts through a hole. The third, almost passable. The sugar makers cheer like you just invented fire. A child hands you a tiny disc shaped like a turtle. For slow energy, she says. You pocket it, just in case. The day grows warm, but the sugar makers never rush. Each step is deliberate, each stir a ritual. You start to realize that the pace of sugar is the pace of rest. Boil too fast, and it scorches. Pack too early, and it crumbles. It's not about speed, it's about listening. Vanek returns from another tree, balancing 3 fresh jars. This one, he says, lifting a jar proudly, is from the oldest tree. Her sap is soft. You ask how old. No one remembers, he shrugs. She was old when my grandmother was a baby. You sip the sap. It's different. Gentler, smoother, almost floral. You're not sure if that's the power of suggestion or truth. Maybe both. Someone sets a bowl of rice near the fire, topped with a spoonful of palm sugar and a slice of salted coconut. It's humble, warm, and quietly profound. This, your guide says, is what they eat after a long climb. You eat slowly. One bite, then another. It tastes like exhaustion wrapped in kindness. The sun begins to dip again, staining the sugar groves gold. The trees seem taller in this light, more solemn. The jars sway slightly, catching glints of sun like mirrors. Vanek hands you a small roll of dried sugar bark, a sweet snack meant for travel. Chew it when you forget why sweetness matters. You tuck it into your pocket next to the turtle sugar. As you walk away from the grove, you glance back. A woman is still stirring the fire. Vanek is climbing again, barefoot and steady. The trees whisper among themselves, maybe about you. You don't need to know what they're saying. It's enough to know they've been here longer than the road, the kitchen, the calendar. And as long as they remain, the sugar grove sweetness behind, will never be pockets heavier with gifts you didn't expect. Turtle-shaped sugar, dried bark, and the lingering scent of burnt sap woven into your clothes. But there's no rush now. The world has slowed to the tempo of syrup. Your guide leads you toward the river. Not the big one that runs like a silver vein across the map, but a gentle, meandering tributary, shy and half hidden beneath fronds and tangled vines. The boat waiting there isn't so much a vessel as a floating hammock with ambitions. It rocks softly in the water, the oar resting lazily on its side, like it knows there's nowhere urgent to be. You climb in, and the current takes over. The river carries you quietly, winding through banks dusted with wild sugar cane and birds that sing as if they're remembering something half forgotten. You trail your fingers in the water. It's warm, but not hot. Slow, but not still. The scent changes too, now brackish, floral, with a faint sharpness in the breeze. Fermentation, your guide explains. You're drifting toward the floating kitchens. Yes, floating. Anchored in the river are wide bamboo platforms covered in canvas canopies, each one a waterborne kitchen where sugar is fermented, pickled, and preserved. This isn't the sugar of sweets. This is the sugar of transformation, the sugar of what comes after the feast. You dock beside one and are greeted by a man named Sok, who wears an apron splattered with the kind of stains that suggest either genius or chaos. Maybe both. He offers you a taste from a ceramic jar. Palm sugar pickled mango. You hesitate. He insists. You try it. The mango is firm, sour, and sharply sweet, like someone took sunshine and bottled its tantrum. The palm sugar rounds the edge, transforming the pucker into a slow, spreading warmth. Good for digestion, Sok says, and for remembering who you are. He gestures to several jars lined up in a row, each sealed with wax and labeled in brush-stroked Khmer. This one is 2 years old. That one's from before the big flood. And this, he taps one reverently, this is from the year my daughter was born. It's emotional sugar. You taste that one too. It's different. Not better, not worse, just layered. Like time has been folded into the flavor. Sweet, yes, but also mellow. A little musty, a little shy. Historians still argue whether palm sugar fermentation was discovered out of preservation necessity or spiritual experimentation. In some ancient records, sugar brines were used for temple offerings believed to preserve memory. In others, they were simply the best way to stop mangoes from sulking into mush during monsoon season. You're handed a slice of lotus root soaked in sugar vinegar and star anise. It's crisp, fragrant, and oddly nostalgic, even though you've never tasted it before. Sliced thin, dyed pale pink with hibiscus petals. Then pineapple slices cured in sugar and salt until they taste like candy with a grudge. This is sugar's final act, Sok explains. After the joy, after the fire, this is where it rests. He offers you a small bundle, rice wrapped in a palm leaf and soaked in fermented syrup. Monks eat this during the rainy retreat, he says. Helps with patience. You chew slowly. It's chewy, tangy, with little bursts of heat from stray pepper flakes. It makes your molars hum. As the boat glides to the next kitchen, your guide points toward a long, bamboo pole sticking out of the water. That's the sour marker, he says. When the river gets too salty, they stop the fermentation. You nod like you understand, but your brain is more focused on the next tasting. Pickled sugar tamarind with shaved ice. It's delightful. Cold, sharp, fizzy from a touch of fermented sap syrup. You slurp it too fast. Your brain rebels briefly. Everyone nods in sympathy. Further along, a woman shows you how to make noom somen kruk, small, glutinous rice balls filled with fermented sugarfish paste. She folds each one into a banana blossom, steams them over the river itself, and serves them with a drizzle of chili molasses. The flavor? Sweet and savory doing a duet, badly but charmingly, like watching two best friends try karaoke. Only for brave mouths, she winks. You manage 3. You feel brave, or foolish, or both. Evening is coming again. The sun dips low, its light stretching across the water like melted sugar. The kitchens begin to wind down. Jars are sealed, fire embers buried. Someone hums a lullaby into a jar before capping it. You dock once more and step back onto land, knees wobbly, teeth slightly confused, soul completely satisfied. You didn't know sugar could ferment. You didn't know fermentation could feel like storytelling. You definitely didn't know pickled eggplant could whisper comfort. Your guide hands you a final treat, dried jackfruit slices dipped in fermented syrup and rolled in palm sugar ash. Last stop, he says. Time to dream about what we've eaten. You nod. You're ready. You chew the jackfruit slowly as the last pink light of the day leans into twilight. Sweet, sour, soft, folds over the river like a silk scarf, soft, warm, and threaded with the golden dust of fireflies. You walk now, more slowly than before, not because your legs are tired, though they are, but because it feels disrespectful to rush through the dusk. You pass a group of elders seated on low woven mats beneath a tamarind tree. They're sipping something from chipped clay cups and nodding at the sky, as if waiting for the moon to reply. One of them waves you over. You look like someone who needs tea, she says, her voice the texture of dried ginger. You accept the cup. The liquid inside is cloudy gold, faintly fizzy, and sweetened with aged palm sugar. There's a floral note you can't place, and a gentle warmth that spreads outward from your sternum like a very polite hug. Fermented lotus pollen, she says, sweetens the blood, calms the arguing organs. You blink. She grins. Your guide murmurs, they call it moon root tea. Drink it slowly or you'll forget what day it is. Challenge accepted. As you sip, the conversation around you meanders like the river. They're not really talking, just remembering out loud. About the time the sugar house flooded and they cooked molasses in canoe pans. About the traveler who tried to chew a palm sugar disc without softening it first and lost a tooth to history. About the boy who fell in love with a sugar thief and carved her name into every sugar mold he could find. You don't know these stories, but somehow they feel like yours now. Someone offers you a palm sugar toffee wrapped in lotus leaf. Inside, there's a single roasted sesame seed. For focus, the elder says, or stubbornness. Depends on the seed. You chew. It sticks to your teeth like a memory refusing to fade. Sweet, earthy, ancient. It's full night now. The moon has risen, round and content, and the lanterns return. Not the paper ones from the festival, but floating lanterns, carved from hollowed-out sugar molds, set gently adrift on the river. You help light one. The waxy sugar glows from within, soft amber. You press your fingers to its sides just for a moment and whisper a thought into the opening. No one tells you what to say. It floats off, bobbing lightly, its reflection trailing behind like a ribbon. Your guide says, "This is called the drift of sweet things." You nod, you feel it. He leads you up a small hill now, away from the river and the flickering lights, toward a quiet house made of clay, thatch, and kindness. Inside, the air smells of coconut husk and slow-cooked rice. A cot waits in the corner. A woven fan clicks overhead. But first, one final sweet. A bowl of borbor samlor, warm rice porridge simmered in coconut milk and stirred with, what else? Palm sugar aged in clay. There's a splash of pickled ginger juice, a few slices of star fruit, and a dusting of toasted mung beans. It smells like sleep. You sit on the floor, spoon in hand. Bite by bite, it begins to dissolve the edges of the day. Historians still argue whether this dish began as a poor farmer's comfort meal or a royal digestive. Either way, it feels like an ending disguised as nourishment. As you eat, your guide adds one last garnish: dried banana blossom petals soaked in sugar vinegar, crisped over a flame. They melt on your tongue with a tiny citrus crackle. "This," he says, "is how the night says thank you." Outside, the river sighs. A cicada begins its song, a slow, drawn-out lullaby that blends with the chirping frogs and the rustle of sugar leaves. You lie back on the cot. The ceiling fan spins lazy circles overhead, matching the rhythm of your breath. Someone has tucked a sprig of pandan under your pillow. The final taste on your tongue is both old and new. Caramel, smoke, a whisper of tamarind. Sweet, yes, but not too sweet, folding its dark velvet cloak around the village. Outside, the river breathes quietly. The waters murmur a gentle companion to your drifting thoughts. Your eyelids flutter as the last echoes of the sugar-drenched day linger, soft and sticky like a favorite blanket. Yet, before you surrender fully to sleep, your guide beckons you outside once more, under a sky heavy with stars so bright they seem almost close enough to touch. Here, far from the bustle of markets and kitchens, you discover the quiet world of the night harvesters. They are small groups of figures moving through the shadows with lanterns aglow, picking, cutting, and collecting the fruits and blossoms that only appear after dark. Among them, you spot a woman gathering sugar palm flowers with delicate care, using a woven basket that clinks faintly with each step. "This is the nectar of the night," your guide murmurs. They collect it to make the sweetest kind of palm sugar, the one that whispers secrets. You watch as she carefully snips clusters of tiny white flowers and deposits them into her basket, the petals shimmering faintly in the lantern light. The air is thick with a heady fragrance, honeyed and floral, a scent that feels like the very essence of the earth's quiet moments. You learn that this nocturnal sugar isn't just prized for sweetness, but for its rumored healing powers, a tradition passed down through generations. Some say the nectar can ease restless minds and calm anxious hearts, though scholars still debate whether this is poetic myth or practical medicine. As the harvesters move silently through the night, you notice the occasional glow of fireflies joining their ranks, blinking softly like tiny sugar crystals dancing in the dark. The scene feels both magical and familiar, like a secret passed from one quiet generation to the next. Your guide invites you to taste a tiny drop of the raw nectar, collected fresh from the flowers. It's intensely sweet yet delicate, with a floral finish that lingers on your tongue. It tastes like moonlight captured in a droplet. While the night harvesters continue their work, you settle on a nearby bench carved from old teak wood, surrounded by the subtle symphony of nocturnal life. The chirp of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl, the gentle rustling of palm fronds. Here, wrapped in the cool embrace of night and the soft glow of lanterns, you reflect on the journey of sugar, from sap dripping silently from towering palms to fermented riverside delicacies, from fire-kissed syrup to moonlit nectar. It's a slow dance of nature, craft, and culture, a story told in sweetness and patience. You feel the world slowing, the rhythm softening. You lie back once again, sleep, the gentle hum of the night weaving around you like a familiar lullaby. The sugar tales you've tasted linger in your mind, sweet and slow, like the syrup that dripped from ancient palms. Outside, the river reflects the moon's soft glow, its surface as smooth as glass. Somewhere nearby, a distant frog croaks, punctuating the quiet with nature's tender punctuation. Your breath matches the rhythm of the night, slow and steady, as if you could melt into the air itself. Remember the sticky sweetness of fermented mango, the crackle of banana blossoms kissed by fire, the delicate floral nectar harvested under moonlight. Each taste a note in this quiet symphony. Your body softens into the cot, sinking into the woven fabric of time and tradition. The stories you've heard tonight about sugar's journey from humble sap to cherished ritual are less about the sweetness itself and more about patience, transformation, and the subtle joy found in small, lingering moments. The villagers' quiet smiles, the slow stirring of pots by candlelight, the gentle crackling of fire, these are the real sugars of life. As your eyes grow heavy, you feel a calm wash over you, gentle and persistent like a river's flow. The day's bustling energy has dissolved, replaced by the serene rhythm of the night. Sleep isn't just an end, it's a soft beginning. Soft fingers of dreams reach out, carrying you on waves of palm sugar and pickled mango, back through ancient groves and quiet kitchens, toward a place where time pauses just long enough for you to rest. Let your mind drift like the floating lanterns, glowing softly, carrying whispered wishes and tender memories downstream. Sweetness surrounds you now, not just on your tongue, but wrapped around your soul. So, as the night deepens and the river hums its endless song, you close your eyes and let the gentle world of sugar dreams take you away. Good night.